it's Ivy, host of Feng Shui, and today I'm here interviewing Lauren Hanson, who is a quantum healing practitioner. But before we talk to Lauren, I want you to hit that subscribe button. I want you to check us out at facebook.com/Feng Shui TV. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and you can always find all of the most updated information about us on fengshuiit.com. So now let's talk to Lauren. Lauren, thanks so much for being here today. And I'm going to let you say what it is that you do with all this stuff. Super cool, super interesting. And I had a session with you about all of this, and so we'll get to that much later in the interview. Okay. But first, welcome to the show. Thanks for talking to us. When people hear the words hypnosis, and they always think, well, did they pull a little pocket watch out and you're getting sleepy, and then you become this, zombie-like person. And of course, that's not what hypnosis is. And so I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about what hypnosis is and what it isn't, and some of the misnomers.
Well, there are several different types of hypnosis. So some of them are like that, where they use something like that. So regression hypnosis is a little bit different, and especially Dolores Cannon's method is a little bit different even from other regression methods. So what we are essentially doing is relaxing the conscious mind so that your soul can emerge and speak with me directly. And that is where the quantum comes in, because in that time space, there is no time, and we're in that quantum space where healing on many different levels occurs: mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Anything that you can conceive of can be accessed through that quantum level. And so she accidentally stumbled upon this. So she and her husband started out doing hypnosis together. He was a hypnotist, and they practiced together on an army base where he was stationed. And the reason that they were doing hypnosis with people there was to kind of help them through their traumas associated with war, being in the military and things like that. So what they discovered was that the deeper that the client went, they started spontaneously telling about their parallel or past lifetimes. So I know that's a lot to take in for people. It was really shocking for them as well, and they did a lot of experiments together. And she tried to validate these actual experiences that somebody had, because at that time she didn't believe in past lifetimes or reincarnation. So that's where it all started. And then he kind of fell to the wayside because he was in an accident, and she took off, and it was like her mission in life, and she did that for over 40 years.
Right. So I want to back up to something that you said, because you mentioned, and I've heard it in another interview of yours, about there is no time. Okay. So this is really getting into quantum physics, right? Yeah. This is a scientific principle.
Right.
This is something no woo-woo, nothing made up. You don't have to, believe in anything to understand that quantum physics is a true science. Yeah. So let's talk about this notion of there is no time.
Okay.
Okay. So when you say time doesn't exist, what do you mean by that?
Okay.
Let's really blow their minds.
Okay. So in our earthbound bodies, we have a perception of time.
Right.
So I think it'd be very appropriate to explain it in this way. There are frames of moments. There's this moment now, there's this moment now, there's only ever now, but we're taking a picture of this moment, and then this moment, and then this moment, and then when you string them together, they look like a film.
Right.
But in actuality, there is only this moment. So that's about as best as I can explain it. It's more something that you, the more you play with that, the more you can kind of feel that there is really no time. And a good example is when we're actually doing a session together, how quickly the time goes by. You don't have a concept of time. You're not laying there thinking 15 minutes. Yeah, you're not thinking that at all, because in actuality, in that quantum level, there is no time. So our brains are programmed to think of time and to have schedules. And yes, the sun does rise and set and things like that. But when we're talking about on a quantum level, it actually does not exist. Right. So in a quantum healing session, the purpose of going back to the original trauma in a past life, which is actually a parallel life, and it's occurring in another space-time over here, you don't have awareness of it, but it's occurring simultaneously. So the reason that we go there for the healing is because that's where the original trauma started. So we're essentially going back in time or sideways in time to change your present perception.
Right.
Did I make it clear?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy way of explaining a really complicated concept. Honestly, it took me years to wrap my head around even the smallest bit of quantum physics. So that was a very good illustration of it. Now, when we're talking about going into hypnosis and the feeling of not much time has passed, let's talk about the process of going into the hypnosis. Not necessarily the steps, but let's talk about the idea of what a person would expect when going into a session with you after meeting in the space, in the therapeutic setting of doing this. Kind of what should a person expect when they sit down with you the first time?
Okay. Well, I do tend to tell people that the word hypnosis is a little bit of a misnomer. It's more like a very deep meditation or trance-like state. The way that people, I think, identify with it the most is that state in between sleeping and awake. When you just woken up, you can feel that your cat's walking around on the bed, you know what I mean? But you're still seeing the images of the dream you just had or any other different images or things that you're experiencing. That's called the theta state. And so that is the level of awareness and perception that my guidance helps you to achieve, and then that's where we can extract the information.
And so when we're extracting that information, you're actually talking to our higher self, our soul, in essence, to get the information, to get pure information about how to help that particular person. How would you describe to a person the concept of connecting to your higher self? Because that's kind of hard for some people to kind of understand, like, what's your higher self? Like, what does that mean?
So throughout most of our humanity that we are aware of throughout our recorded history, humans have been segregated within, we are one being. We are complete, you're a whole complete Ivy. But in this existence that we have been playing out, we have separate parts: the ego, the higher self, the personality, the inner child, the shadow self. And these are all different aspects of the whole. And so what we are trying to, where we're going, or what you might say when somebody is enlightened, they're completely integrated with an eternal love and appreciation for all of these parts of themselves. There is no more putting parts outside of yourself. It is all integrated within and part of the one. You are one, and then you're also connected to the collective and to God. So when you're accessing your higher self, a lot of people are still segregated. And so their higher self is what a lot of people believe in angels and a divine presence and things like that, and that is accurate, and if that's in your belief system. So a lot of times when you get a nudge or like just a tap on the shoulder, don't go down that street or go talk to that person, send this email, or wear a blue shirt today. So that's your higher self communicating with you. But we are so much entrenched in the material world, checking Facebook and Twitter and our laptops, our emails, and watching TV and getting caught up in sitcoms and things like that, that we don't listen. We're not listening to our higher self. And that's when things start to happen. They start knocking louder.
Right.
And I think Oprah said it at one time, like, if you don't start looking at the red flags, they're going to start throwing bricks at your head, and that's about what starts happening.
That's true. I mean, and I think a lot of people, most people probably in our world, in the world of wellness and holistic living, I think all of us have that brick being thrown at us story.
Yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of times people will just assume that because we're practitioners in our various areas of practice, that we just were born this
have
way.
It all together.
And have it all together, and we just were, oh, I'm one with spirit and she is good. That's just not the case.
Right.
For many of us, we got a pretty big brick thrown at us.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna bring that in with something that you and I talked about in a session with me. I was in a really bad automobile accident, a severe automobile accident. No one expected me to be walking out of it.
Right.
That was my brick. I mean, and I heard you. I mean, you want to talk about having a brick thrown at you. I mean, it changed absolutely everything.
Right.
I did an entire career change. I mean, it changed everything down to even certain personality traits happened during that opportunity. And I say opportunity because at the time it seemed like it was the worst thing in the world that could happen to me. And I thought, my God, my world is falling apart. I can't walk. I can't do this. And then when I could walk, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this limp.
Yeah.
And, it was all these things that my physical body was injured, but in fact, my spiritual body was being rebuilt.
Absolutely.
And it was super, super big push in getting me back on track with what I did.
We call it a redirect.
Yeah, it was a big redirect.
Yeah.
And so that brings us into the actual healing concept. And I'm going to bring my story into this with you. But during these sessions, there are actual physical healings that take place during the session of whatever the period of time is that you're there with that client. Let's talk about that. I mean, what's the concept with that? Because I experienced some things, and it's still mind-blowing to me.
Good.
I mean, it was amazing. I was there. I knew it happened, and I'm going to talk about it. But I'm going to let you start off with this about the healing concept.
Well, it's my belief, and of course, everything comes down to belief. So I'll just come from my heart, is that every physical dis-ease or malady or accidents that manifest, things like this, have a spiritual root cause. Because everything is energy, okay? So as you know, so when something is imbalanced or there's a message that needs to be gotten across to you in this video game we call Earth, or Earth life, your higher self is going to have to manifest something physical for you to get the message, because they start with the red flags, they start with the knocking at the door and the whispers in your ear and things like that, but we don't listen, right? And so that's when an imbalance can manifest as an illness or an injury or something like that. So it's not at all a stretch of the imagination to understand that healing physically on a quantum level is just as easy as emotionally or psychologically, because it is all connected.
Right. And I think there's a lot of practices and different therapies that teach you that the body can heal itself. I mean, this is kind of going back to just the basic biology of the human body here on Earth, is that the body pretty much has what it needs in order to protect itself, to keep itself going. It's when we introduce all of these other negative, or not even necessarily negative energies, but just energies that don't belong where they are. We introduce the stuff and we cause the actual disease within our body, also known as disease. And so, this goes into complete collaboration, or the same thing that I do with Feng Shui. I go into a room and, someone has 3 or 4 couches and 2 tables, and you've got to kind of literally step over it in order to get around, and you stump your toe, and then they're mad and they're cussing, because their toe is hurting, and they're going, "Can you fix this?" And I'm going, the first thing we got to do is get some of this stuff out. Why? Because chi can't flow the way that chi needs to flow, because chi is just like us. It can't just, it's got to jump and dip and do all this stuff, and it makes it very unhappy. And so in turn, it makes your space unhappy, which then affects the physical body. And so that's kind of the correlation I saw with what you do, with what I do, is that basically I'm the person that's walking in going, ooh, oh, okay, let's get this all flowing back in a level that's going to be happy and okay for you and your family. The same thing as what you did with me or any other client, is you're communicating with my higher self to say, whoa, okay, I'm going to let you fix this, but I'm going to kind of help lead you and guide you. And that brings me into what I really wanted to highlight about this type of hypnosis, is that when we did our session together, you didn't do anything.
No.
I did it all. And
exactly.
And I did it, and I'm still going, how in the world did I do that? Like, I mean, it was the most surreal experience I've ever had. And I've done a lot of hypnosis. I mean, I've done lots and lots of various hypnotherapy, hypnosis therapies for many, many years. I mean, I believe in this stuff. It works. But this was a truly unique experience because in this experience, you did nothing. You didn't tell me to do anything. And it was clearly my higher self speaking to me. And there were actually times when I was having a conversation with my higher self, and it kind of made me chuckle. Like I was laughing, and I'm going, did they really just say that? I mean, I felt a little bit borderline crazy at times because I'm going, this isn't happening. And it would respond to me, and I would respond to it. And like I said, it was such a pleasant, peaceful experience. And so what do you think about when your clients do they have the same reaction that I had, that, wow, you didn't even do anything?
I don't think they think about it on the same level as you do, since you've had so much experience. Not typically anyways. But I do always tell people, any practitioner of QHHT will tell you, we are only there as a facilitator. We're only there so that there's somebody to ask your questions and to ask for healing for you, because you're in a state of consciousness where you can't really do more than one thing, and that is just to be there in that quantum space with your higher self. But it is definitely something that people can access on their own through intense meditation, transcendental meditation. When people are in a deep state of meditation, it's essentially the same thing, and they're communicating with their higher selves and asking for healing, asking questions. So anybody can do this. The reason that we love to do what we do so much is because a lot of people just don't have practice at it. So one of the most beautiful things for me is to have a client come up and say, wow, that was just like when I do my meditation. I can do this on my own. And so they're empowered to know that they don't have to have some guru or some enlightened spiritual teacher to get answers for themselves.
Right.
All you have to do is listen to your higher self.
Right.
So, but what the QHHT does, if somebody has a session and they're not really linked up with their higher self, it strengthens that that connection, so that they know what it feels like, so that next time they're doing meditation, or next time they're in prayer, or just laying on their bed having a moment, they know what their higher self feels like, what it feels like to them inside of their heart and their mind, so that they can trust themselves that the answers that they're getting is actually from their divine guidance, and not just, they're not just making it up.
Right.
So we as practitioners, we're facilitating between the individual, the personality, and their divine aspects, and we're bringing that together so that that individual is now empowered to have a different level, like a greater level of healing for themselves, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, and all healing is self-healing.
Right. So let's back up, because we might have I got excited because of my experience. So let's back up and kind of talk about the idea of what a person would expect. So when I had my session with you, I was instructed to write down a couple of questions that I might have had, whether it be about experiences or things that I was concerned about, or even physical ailments I could list down. And those are the questions that I actually give to you, so that once I'm in my theta wave state, you're able to ask me these questions.
Right.
And one of the things I will mention to the audience is that when I was under hypnosis, I was completely aware. And I know that you say some people will remember and some people may not remember as much, but I clearly remember pretty much every detail that happened. I was aware. I heard when a dog barked. I heard when a car went down the road. I could hear when the air conditioning system would come on, the AC would come on, but it didn't affect me. It was like, okay, dog's barking. Let's just keep going. Like it didn't even faze me. It was just kind of like, you hear a car going down the road now, you don't pay really much attention to it. And so in this session, let's talk about the ethical component of, once someone is under hypnosis, can you get them to do things that they don't want to do, or
Oh, no,
can you harm them?
not.
Can you hurt them? Let's talk about some of the fears people may have
Yeah, I
with
know
hypnosis.
that's definitely fears that people have.
Right.
And I think a lot of that comes from Hollywood, unfortunately. But during a QHHT session, the individual is always in control, always. So in your case, you were completely aware, and that's how I am too when I'm the client and not the practitioner. And some people are totally aware. It's kind of like when you're reading a really good book or watching a good movie, you're just so focused on the story. So you know that your dog's barking, but you just have learned to tune
He's okay.
turning it out. Some people don't remember anything. And that's what we call the somnambulistic state, and that's where Dolores Cannon worked a lot, where they don't remember anything. That's becoming less and less common these days. Most people are somewhere in between where they remember some things and they don't remember, they do remember and they don't remember some things. They kind of go in and out. So what it comes down to is really trusting your divine guidance and trusting yourself, which is if you don't believe in anything else, you don't believe in God or anything spiritual, you trust yourself.
Right.
So if the session is proceeding and your higher self doesn't like how something is going or how it's being handled, they will wake you right up. You'll come right out of it. So there is no room for anything unethical because your higher self is there to protect you, and you have other protectors too, and they will bring you right up if they don't like what's going on. And I know this for sure because my husband does it every time I have a session with him. He wakes himself up.
Really?
Yeah, they just decide that it's over. They're done.
Okay.
And so he just wakes right up.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no concern with anything unethical. And I would say if people watching this are concerned about that, then they probably need to work a little bit more on that fear, or choose a practitioner that they feel super comfortable with, and just know in their heart that that person's not going to do that. Because trust between the client and the practitioner is
Paramount.
essential. Yeah. Yes, we're not going to get anywhere if the client doesn't trust the practitioner.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was to really hone in on the healing session that takes place during this period of time that the client is working with you. One thing in particular with me, we worked on, I mentioned the previous with the car accident, and my knee was injured, my leg was injured very badly. And we actually did a healing session on my knee during my hypnosis with you. And the results were pretty profound.
Good.
Of course, one of the things that you talked with me about prior to going into session was my level of belief in being able to self-heal.
Yes.
So let's talk with the audience about the importance of having a belief system that supports self-healing.
Okay.
I'll let you go with that.
Take it away.
Yeah, you
Okay.
take it away. Your turn.
Okay, so a lot of times in QHHT we don't get around to talking about the mind a lot.
Right.
We're talking about spirit, we're talking about soul, we're talking about divine connection. But the mind, in this 3D body that we're in, the mind is our filter. The mind is where our programming is. So it's like having a computer with software. If your software is telling you, or let's say you have some malware that's manifesting as cancer or something, okay? And if your software, your programming is telling you that the only way that this is gonna be healed is through radiation and chemotherapy, and there's just absolutely no way you're going to believe anything else because you're a diehard science believer, this is just an example, then you're not going to be able to receive that healing.
Right.
So not to be too negative about it, but our minds, this is where it starts and ends with the healing. We can only heal ourselves to the extent that our programming allows.
That's right.
So one of the things that we do focus on as practitioners is ascertaining what level of belief our client is holding at that current time. So we may have clients that totally believe in the emotional, mental, and psychological and spiritual healing part of it, and they receive beautiful benefits from that, but the physical is just too hard for them to get their head around at that time.
Right.
And so, and it is hard for us to imagine that something that you can actually see with your eyes and think that it's going to be healed when you come out of the session. But it's absolutely possible, because what is inside is outside, what's outside is inside. There's space in between these atoms and molecules. We're not actually solid.
Right.
Your energy projecting as what we call a solid figure. So your level of belief is going to really carry out through the session what sort of physical healing that you manifest. And don't get me wrong, we have stories every day of people receiving a terrible diagnosis and then having a session and going back to the doctor and it being completely cleared up or 90% healed. I know in my case, I have a number of different healing stories too from my experience with QHHT. But it took me some time to get my head around it. And so that's fine if that's where the client is at in their belief system, that's fine. But what we want to really convey to our clients is that all healing is self-healing, and that it's not me doing anything to you. I'm not healing you. QHHT is not healing you. You are allowing space and surrender to the healing that is always available to everyone all the time.
Just redirecting that focus to
exactly.
focus in on how to do this and speed it up a little bit.
Yes.
Just
And
kinda
people have
nudging it
to
along
want it.
Right.
They have, some people are attached to their illnesses for various reasons. Not to be callous or anything, but for attention or for government benefits. Those are the two most common. So if they're still attached to that and wondering, well, so-and-so is going to leave me if I heal this because then I'm not going to need that person anymore, then
self-fulfilling prophecy
yes,
occurs.
Exactly.
Right.
Then they need to, if they want healing, they have to really want it for themselves regardless of the consequences afterward.
And so that kind of rolls into our next question about religion and QHHT, because a lot of times people are scared of a lot of these wellness techniques because they feel like, oh, it's going to go against my religion, or they're going to tell me something freaky, there's some woo-woo that's going to scare everybody, or, you know, it goes against something of my belief. Let's talk about how QHHT relates to a religious stance.
Well, probably, you know, maybe not a lot of people are going to want to hear this who are really adamant about and really embroiled in their personal belief systems. But the beautiful thing about QHHT is that your higher self is never going to tell you to believe something else. So I've had sessions with Christians who their higher self tells them to read the Bible more. I've had sessions with Wiccans who tell them to join a coven. I've had sessions with people who don't believe in Jack, and their higher self tells them to meditate, look within, and listen to their messages, get quiet with themselves. So in that respect, it's not, QHHT is not secular and it's not religious. It is above any of that.
Right.
Your higher self is above any of that. These are systems that humans have created to explain our environment and to be able to navigate in as healthy a way as we can muster through our lives.
Right.
So they'll never tell you to believe something else.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your service. Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
your time. And if you want to find out more information about Lauren Hanson and QHHT, you can check out her information right here below. And you can also find her information on our website, fengshuiit.com. And give her a call. It's amazing stuff, guys. That's it for today. And now it's your turn. Thanks for following us on our Wonder Why Wednesday on our Facebook page. You can get information on how to submit your questions for Wonder Why Wednesday right here below. right here in the description area. Click it, read it, understand it, send those questions in so that you can have an opportunity to win some cool Feng Shui gear that you can't get any other way except through our Wonder Why Wednesday on Facebook. So our winner today is Claudia Turgis. She submitted the question, when using big clocks in your decor, should it be a functioning clock, or if not, what time should it be set on to show continuity? It's always good Feng Shui to have functioning clocks in your home, all right? The goal of Feng Shui is to always have Qi moving throughout the space at a pace that's not too fast and not too slow. If there's stagnant Qi in a home, which is what would happen around the clock if the clock is not moving continuously, it could become negative Qi. And also, any item that's not really serving a purpose in a home, and a clock that's not running doesn't really serve too much of a purpose, it's going to create some negative Qi, and we don't want to do that, all right? The purpose of a clock is to provide the person looking at it with, well, the time, right? So we don't want the time to only be correct twice a day. So we want to make sure that clock is really functioning the way that it should. Do yourself a favor, get a real clock, set the right time on it so that you can be very productive throughout the day. Also, another tip about clocks I want to make sure you are aware of is that you never want to place a clock directly in the entryway when you're entering a space, whether it be an office or a home, because the viewing of that clock as soon as you're walking into that space is going to always make you feel rushed and hurried, as if you don't have enough time to complete the task you need to do for the day. It's going to totally change the energy of that space, so make sure to never do that, all right? So that's your answer to your question. We'll be getting your gift pack to you. Again, we want to always have your questions sent in to us on Wednesdays. You can check it out again on our Facebook page right here. Yep. So we look forward to that. Thanks so much for following.
Hold on, your DIY Designovation tip is up next.
So today we're going to talk about one of my absolutely favorite items that's inside of my home, and that is my beautiful collection of Himalayan salt lamps. Himalayan salt lamps are hand-chiseled solid blocks of salt. They have a beautiful pink color, and they're often pinkish or kind of orangey due to the high concentration of trace minerals contained within the salt. The salt blocks are hollowed out in the center, and a light source is inserted into the bottom of it, and a wooden base is attached to the bottom of it so that it can stand and look really pretty and protect the cord and the light source. Most people who own salt lamps report that they find them to be very relaxing when they're near them, and they feel that they also attribute positive health benefits when they use them. Some of the benefits include things like improved breathing, reduced allergy and asthma symptoms, they have less colds and flu, reduced stress, they have fewer headaches and migraines, reduced symptoms of inflammatory diseases like arthritis and skin conditions. They neutralize the electromagnetic radiation that's in your home that's just naturally occurring from your different devices. And when they have these lamps in their homes, they report having better sleep at night and increased energy levels. Now, the last two bullet points is probably because these lamps don't emit blue light. And as we know, most artificial light is high in the blue spectrum, which of course has been shown to reduce melatonin production and can interfere with normal sleep patterns. So, how exactly do these salt lamps work? Well, it's twofold. The simple explanation is that the salt is hygroscopic, and that means that it basically attracts moisture from the air. The moisture in the air contains yucky airborne debris like bacteria and viruses, pet dander, dirt, dust, pollen, all that other allergen stuff that's floating around. And all that stuff carries a positive charge. Let me get it out, okay? When the salt lamp attracts this contaminated moisture, it quickly evaporates because this salt actually heats up, and it leaves all of that contaminated stuff that's in the air trapped right here, and it won't become airborne again. The process of moisture evaporating on the heated salt lamp generates negative ions. And these negative ions released by the Himalayan salt lamp, they bind to all that positively charged debris, all that dirty stuff, right? And it makes them drop harmlessly onto the floor, where you can remove it by just simply cleaning your floor, right? Vacuuming, mopping, whatever. We love to breathe air that is charged with negative ions. Think of taking a deep breath close to a waterfall, or after a thunderstorm, or if you're walking near the beach.
to breathe that air, it just feels good, right? One of the things I recommend to you is that you need to clean your salt lamp with a damp cloth at least once a month. And the way you do that is you just simply get the switch, you just turn it off, right? Allow the lamp to cool, and then you're just going to gently rub the lamp all over with the damp cloth, and that cleans away all the trapped dust and the particles, the same way you dust your furniture or electronics in your home. The other big factor to consider is the wattage of the light bulb that comes with your salt lamp. Without a strong enough wattage bulb, salt lamps won't evaporate properly and they can drip water into the base. Salt lamps should feel warm to the touch for them to work properly. So when you come up, you touch it, you should feel the warmth from it. If your lamp isn't warm or if it drips too much water, especially in humid environments, increase the wattage of the light bulb within it, okay? Just get a stronger light bulb. The best place to have your salt lamps is quite close to where you spend a lot of your time, so you can breathe in fresh air that's being generated right then and there, right? So sitting one of these on your coffee table right next to where you sit and watch TV, or on your desk at work, or a nightstand beside your bed is the perfect location. Now let's talk about the color of these lamps. As you can see, the color varies tremendously. The color of salt lamps varies, but as a general rule, the darker the shade of pink, like this one right here, or orange, the better the quality of salt. And so this is one of my favorite pieces of salt because of how dark it is. That means it's a really, really, really good quality of salt. Very light pink, like this one right here, especially if they have black deposits visible, that's just a sign that it was mined from a lower quality mine. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means that maybe I would add another lamp in the room with this one, or I'm just simply using it as just something aesthetic, and any benefits I get from it is just kind of like an extra kick, right? So you see a lot of my collection, I have different shapes, different sizes. The shape of the lamp can vary, and it does not affect the lamp's ability to clean the air. So like the pyramid over there doesn't clean any better or worse than maybe a rough cut one like this one right here. The only thing that's important is the surface area. So the size of the lamp is what's important. The bigger and heavier the lamp, like my big 100-pounder right here, the more health benefits you should notice from it. So one of the other things I wanted to point out with the Himalayan salt lamps is that they can be used for a lot of different reasons. One that's in my collection is this one right here. When you light it up and heat it, this one's actually for your feet. So after it warms up, you'll actually just place your feet here, and it helps to kind of energize your body and help to clear out your auric field and make you just feel a little bit better, a lot more energy, right? Some of these other ones, they look really pretty and they just work the way that they naturally work. But what you'll find is that, especially when you have large pieces like this one right here, they attract people to want to come up and touch them. So when they see a big piece of salt like this in my home, most people come up and they want to rub it, they want to touch it, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're actually helping to kind of neutralize things in their own body. At the end of the day, you have to just trust your inner wisdom and your own intuition as to what it is that you need in your space. There's a ton of rules out there talking about what size lamp or how many pounds the lamp should be in order for you to use in X size room. But don't get hung up on that stuff. Don't worry about that stuff. Just know that you will know when the right piece of salt needs to be placed in an area in your home. And this has been your DIY Designovation tip.